It's taken a while, hasn't it, Manchester United fans? But this feels like a big step forward in the regeneration of the club. A confirmation, a reminder of the breaking news a few moments ago. Manchester United have now agreed a deal with Brentford to sign Bryan Mbeumo, and that deal is worth £71 million. Now, it's a deal comprising of £65 million guaranteed, plus a potential £6 million in add-ons. Now, the fixed portion of that will be paid in 4 instalments. That'll help Manchester United's PSR. He's been a long-term target for United this summer. They've already signed Matheus Cunha from Wolves. And Mbeumo has been back at Brentford training this week as they got their pre-season preparations underway. But it looks like, provided there's no snags, he will be beginning the season as a United player. Let's have a look at his stats. He finished last season in the Premier League with 20 goals. And he ranked first for expected assists and crosses attempted. He was also in the top 3 for distance covered in sprints and matches. Feels like an Amorim player. But we'll start this hour with the news which will provide some real relief for Manchester United fans. In the last hour, they finally agreed a deal with Brentford for the signing of Bryan Mbeumo. They've gone backwards, they've gone forwards, they've gone backwards, they've gone forwards. Finally, the deal is agreed. I'm joined by Dharmesh Sheth. Dharmesh, what else can you tell us about this one?
Yeah, it looks like the saga is close to coming to an end. This started about 6 weeks ago, didn't it? Manchester United making that bid of £45 million plus £10 million in performance-related add-ons. Then another bid went in worth £62.5 million. I think Brentford were really, really steadfast and stubborn in their approach to this. They had a figure in mind and they said, we are not going to go anywhere below that. And finally, the two clubs have met, and it is a deal worth £71 million. Manchester United will pay an initial fee of £65 million plus £6 million in performance-related add-ons. The initial fee, the £65 million, will be paid in 4 instalments. And that's where the information I was getting was where the crux of this deal was going to be. Manchester United weren't too far away on the overall fee. It was always going to come down to the structure that would suit both Brentford and Manchester United. Because if it had been in like 3 instalments, that probably wouldn't have worked for United on the one hand. But with it being 4 instalments now, they get to spread that cost over 4 periods as opposed to just 3 instalments. So the deal is now agreed. We expect Bryan Mbeumo to have a medical in the coming days, and there is a growing optimism that he will be part of Manchester United's squad for their pre-season tour of the United States, and they take off for that tour on Tuesday.
OK, so a bit of a rush from a Manchester United point of view. Brentford ended the season in such great shape, but they've now lost their manager, gone to Tottenham. They've lost their captain, gone to Arsenal. Now they've lost their top scorer off to Manchester United. Where does it leave them?
I mean, they have got good money for Bryan Mbeumo. They have got good money for Christian Norgard as well, who you mentioned has gone to Arsenal. It was, of course, a big blow losing Thomas Frank, the head coach, who went to Tottenham Hotspur. But focus will now, I guess, be on Johan Wissa. And the noises we've been hearing throughout this transfer window is that Brentford do not want to sell both Bryan Mbeumo and Johan Wissa in the same transfer window. Now, we do know that alongside the interest in Bryan Mbeumo from Manchester United, there has been big interest in Johan Wissa, not least from Newcastle United, because they've turned their attention to Wissa following the news that Liverpool are pursuing a deal for Hugo Ekitike. Nottingham Forest have bid for Johan Wissa before. They remain interested, and I'm sure Thomas Frank himself, when he faces the media in around an hour or so from now, will be asked the question whether Tottenham Hotspur are still interested in Johan Wissa, because, of course, he managed him so well last season. But the noises we're getting right now is that Brentford aren't under any pressure to sell. He's got a year left on his contract, but crucially, there's an option to extend that contract by a further year. They do not want to sell both Mbeumo and Wissa in the same transfer window. I know you can never say never, because if an incredible bid was to come in, Brentford probably would have to think about it. But the amount of goals that they would lose from last season if both of those players were to leave, I don't think Brentford want to go down that way.
Yeah, I don't think their fans would want that either. As for Manchester United, closing in on a second big transfer of the summer, Matheus Cunha's already signed and Mbeumo looks like he's well on his way. Where will they shift their focus next, do you think?
In a word, exits. I think they want to generate some money, particularly from those 5 players that they gave a little bit of extra time to try and sort out their futures. Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho, Alejandro Garnacho, Antony and Tyrell Malacia. Let's start with Rashford. Juventus, we're told, have explored the conditions of a deal for Marcus Rashford, as have Barcelona. We know Barcelona have got a long-standing interest, and it's mutual because Marcus Rashford wants to go to Barcelona. However, the transfer fee and the personal terms, both of those could prove to be stumbling blocks. Hence why, after he went on loan to Aston Villa last season, for the second half of last season, you can't rule out another loan in this transfer window either. I think it would suit Barcelona, probably not so much Manchester United because they would prefer a permanent deal. However, if they were to do a loan deal, it would be a creative loan. Manchester United would probably want an obligation attached to that deal. Aside of Marcus Rashford, we mentioned Jadon Sancho. Juventus, again, they are exploring a deal for Jadon Sancho. We do know that they've been in talks with Manchester United over a transfer fee. They've been in talks with Sancho's representatives over personal terms. Again, what would prove to be more of a stumbling block would be the personal terms because of the wages that Jadon Sancho is on. As far as Juventus are concerned, their focus at the moment is to finalise the deal for Porto's Francisco Conceição. That was the #1 priority. And people thought, well, is it one or the other? It's our information that they do want to bring in both, but to bring in Sancho as well as Conceição, they are likely to have to make sales. Now, Timothy Weah is of big interest to Marseille. Nico Gonzalez is of interest to Inter and Atletico Madrid. If they can sell one or both of those, then maybe the Sancho deal is a realistic one. As for Antony, we do know that Real Betis are desperate to sign Antony. It's just very problematic to do that deal on a permanent basis simply because Real Betis haven't really got the finances to do that. They want to do another loan. United will want an obligation attached to that. Interestingly, Bayer Leverkusen, their head coach is Erik ten Hag. He was asked about Antony. He says he's like a son to me. Am I interested now? Not at the moment, but in the future, you can never tell. So I think with regard to exits, it might just drag on a little bit because clubs who are interested in these players will probably spot an opportunity that Manchester United want these players out. Let's see what kind of deal.
Despite Mbeumo's endorsement of Frank, the Manchester Evening News reported that Man United remain confident of beating Tottenham to the signing of the Cameroon star. The report claims the Red Devils believe they can secure his signing, with Mbeumo having told Confidence he only wants to join Man United, despite the potential to reunite with Frank at Tottenham and play Champions League football since joining for a 5.8M transfer fee. Mbeumo has scored 70 goals in 242 games for Brentford, including 42 in 136 Premier League matches. Mbeumo thrived following the departure of Ivan Toney last summer, with the forward enjoying his best Premier League campaign to date. The 25-year-old scored 20 goals and provided 8 assists in the top flight last season. Mbeumo would provide Man United with much-needed firepower after Ruben Amorim's side scored just 44 goals in the Premier League last season, the second lowest of any non-relegated side.